fighting the West. So.
Do you think he's underappreciated? Underestimated?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. But he definitely uses that. I like how he uses that. But I mean, true. If you're a true basketball, which is not a lot of true basketball minds and people that understand the game. But for me, I understand it. I know. Give me Damian Lillard. I'll show you how appreciated he'll be.
I think you saw also.
In hours of Terry Stotton, the Portland Trailblazers parting ways on Friday night, their star Damian Lillard made it clear that he wanted Jason Kidd as his successor. This endorsement not sitting well with Kidd, who formally withdrew consideration from the gig, saying Dame's public proclamation left him uncomfortable and feeling like he would put both Dame and Portland's process in an awkward circumstance. Stephen A., who should the Blazers target as head coach to keep Lillard happy?
Well, to answer the question, number one, it was right to have been Jason Kidd because that's who Damian Lillard wanted. Mark Jackson, yet again, I'm going to bring up that name yet again, our colleague and analyst here at ESPN. How the hell this man don't get interviews? It's just beyond me. It's just beyond me. Mark Jackson should be interviewed by Portland. Mark Jackson should be interviewed by Boston. Mark Jackson should be interviewed for damn it any head coaching job out there in the NBA, considering what he brought to the table. Max, I'll leave a couple of names to you.
I just want one name. Just one I'm thinking about.
They were on my list. I'll leave that. Chauncey Billups is a name I'm going to throw out there as well. But let me get to this Jason Kidd thing, because I will remind everybody, yeah, I know I'm doing First Take, and I got Stephen A's World, and I'm a very, very busy man in studio. But I have been covering the NBA for a quarter century. I do know a lot of people, and I know everybody involved in all of this stuff with Jason Kidd. Everybody. Now, let me say this. Jason Kidd's name comes up. Mm-hmm. Damian Lillard throws out his name.
Gave him an out.
They're Oakland natives, both of them. They've known each other for years, okay? That's why Damian Lillard did that, because he respects the brother and he knows him, all right? And then all of a sudden, all this noise comes out about Jason Kidd's past. Molly, domestic violence, 2000, 2001, I believe it was, DWI, 2012. I would remind everybody that since that time, no other incident has happened. Jason Kidd has had not one but two head coaching jobs in Brooklyn and Milwaukee. But somehow the Knicks job comes up, people start talking about his past. Okay? The Lakers job, because they wanted him before Frank Vogel, people start talking about his past. Now Portland comes up and people start talking about his past. And I find that a tad bit odd. How all of these stories just suddenly percolate right when the time when it seems ideal that the brother's about to get a head coaching job. At some point in time, it's like this. Excuse me. What about merit? The merit of what you do? Because Jason Kidd has been happily married for over 10 years. Ain't had no incidents to speak of or whatever. Okay? And if you're good enough to be an assistant coach on a team, okay, then your merit should decide whether or not you're the head coach, as opposed to somebody bringing up stuff from 20 years ago, all right? So I find that a tad bit odd. He was not uncomfortable. You have to figure out how I know this. He was not uncomfortable with Damian Lillard recommending him. He was honored that Damian Lillard would recommend him for that job. Now, Neil O'Shea is running the show in Portland, okay? And he finally decides to get rid of Terry Stotts, and all of a sudden, you hear these candidates, and conveniently these stories come leaking out. Max, now you know me. I'm a very, very busy man, like I said, until you require my attention and ask me to, and essentially force me to look into stuff. I have better things to do, but now this got my attention because I want to know why. I want to know why, and all of a sudden, you understand, a name like Jason Kidd comes out, and we start hearing about all of these things that we all knew, but nobody talked about. And every single time he comes up for a head coaching job, that's the only time somebody says, wait a minute now. Now this man's employed. Ain't like he ain't been unemployed. He's employed in the NBA.
Yeah. Like it's okay for him to be an assistant,
real
but
quick.
it's not okay for him to be a
Real
head
quick,
coach.
the way I read him saying he was uncomfortable was, it just sounds to me like maybe the Lakers job might be available before too long, and maybe he would be considered for that.
It could be, but I doubt it. But that's not it. He was not uncomfortable. He was not uncomfortable.
Let me say this. I'd love to see Sam Cassell. You always talk about the paucity of African-American head coaches. Well, if you go to retreads, guys who've already had jobs, you're not entering any fresh blood in there. Why not a guy who's paid his dues in the assistant ranks, Sam Cassell, a champion as a player, as a top assistant coach, get his name in there. And I really like that idea of Sam Cassell.
Yep.
And
so do I.
Yeah.
So do I.
Yeah.
And by the way, Jason Kidd, just so you know, Jason Kidd with Sam Cassell, where their strength comes in, particularly with Jason Kidd, why the Lakers were so interested in him, it was Jason Kidd that developed Giannis. He's big on player development. Him and his team. When you play with Jason Kidd, or you play for Jason Kidd, you get better as a talent. Yusuf Nurkic. Just a thought. Just a thought.
You give Dame whatever coach he wants.
Yes, you
Dame
do.
Lillard says, I want this
Neil
coach.
O'Shea.
Who would you want, Kidd or Cassell? After the Blazers parted ways with Terry Stotts last Friday, D'Antoni has serious interest in the Portland Trail Blazers head coaching vacancy. That, according to The Athletic. Mike D'Antoni is one of 6 active coaches with at least 600 victories as an NBA head coach. That said, his 672 such wins are second most among those without a finals appearance while leading the charge. D'Antoni has led 3 teams to the conference finals as a head coach. Max Kellerman, should Lillard want D'Antoni as coach?
Hell yes. Hell yes. There's a lot of D'Antoni slander. And by the way, I've participated in some of it. But back in New York, I was on the radio in New York, used to call him Mike Antoni. Before his plane literally touched the ground in L.A., when he went to L.A., I was making jokes, Mike Antoni, right? He needs a D coordinator. And when he's had one on the bench, it's worked out. But Mike D'Antoni is the guy you go and get when your team really doesn't have enough talent to win a championship under almost any circumstance, but you have a really talented primary ball handler. Then you go get Mike D'Antoni as coach. You know why? Because he'll get you closer to winning the championship than anyone else. He's the guy, enabled by Daryl Morey especially, when in Houston, where it's like, let's just play the most efficient style, and who cares if people like it or not? Because people liked, the D'Antoni Suns, right? But let's just take a lot of threes and free throws and not take mid-range and everything. And Stephen A. and people like him complained when they fall short of a championship. Mike D'Antoni didn't have the talent in Houston to win a championship. You know what D'Antoni did with James Harden as point guard? He got the Rockets to host the Game 7 against the most talented team of all time into the Nets team, the KD, Steph, Clay, Dre, Iggy Warriors. They hosted a Game 7, and they didn't have Chris Paul, and lost by single digits in spite of missing 27 threes consecutively. And you know what everyone said at that point? Well, live by the 3, die by the 3. See, you can't win a championship with D'Antoni. I'm not trying to hear that. Stephen A., you know what's going to happen if he goes to Portland, another team without enough on the roster to win a championship? They'll lose in the conference finals, which is farther than they've been, right, in the Damian Lillard era. Lillard will go crazy. They'll lose in the conference finals in a tough series, and you'll sit here and say, see, you can't win a championship with D'Antoni, instead of acknowledging the fact that you get closer to winning a championship with D'Antoni with teams that have no business getting there because of D'Antoni, the coach. Of course Lillard should want D'Antoni.
Do you believe excellence can be emulated?
Yes.
You don't believe that D'Antoni is doing something that other people can't figure out?
Yeah, you can imitate him, sure.
Okay. So now we go to this point. And see, this is why somebody like Mike D'Antoni wouldn't like me, because I completely disagree with Max Kellerman. I respect the hell out of Mike D'Antoni. I actually like him as a human being. I think he's a very nice man. I think the job that he did in Phoenix was phenomenal. And he deserves a lot of credit to the way he has transformed the culture of the NBA in terms of how the game is played. Because before Steph came along, there was a guy by the name of Steve Nash. Now, he might not have deserved one of those 2 league MVPs because one of them should have gone to Shaq. But nevertheless, Steve Nash was a sensational basketball player. And he had Amari Stoudemire, and he had Joe Johnson, and he had Sean Marion, and all of these brothers, and Phoenix was legit. But you know something? you weren't going to get over the hump because San Antonio was in your way, because the Lakers was in your way, and they actually play defense.
And if not for that one series with all the ejections, maybe they do win the championship that year.
You can say the maybes, but I don't want to hear that. It didn't get done. And in the end, here's my whole point. I'm looking at Mike D'Antoni. 1 season in Denver, 1/2 season in Denver, 5 in Phoenix, that's 6 seasons, 4 in New York, that's 10.5 seasons basically, 2 in LA, that's 12.5, 4 seasons in Houston, and not one single trip to the NBA Finals to show for it. Damian Lillard ain't 22. He's been around for a while. CJ McCollum has been around for a while. Covington and Melo and those boys have been around for a while. How many damn chances you supposed to get? The man coached James Harden, the man coached Steve Nash, the man coached Kobe Bryant, the man coached, all of these guys he had. Not a single trip to the finals to show for it. I am sick and tired of coaches, white coaches, getting chance after chance after chance after chance. I'm not saying that Mike D'Antoni doesn't deserve to be a head coach. I don't want to put that out there. Mike D'Antoni, for a lot of teams, but let him go get one of them retreads and make them relevant. Why he always got to get a Damian Lillard caliber or a James Harden caliber or a Kobe Bryant caliber? Why you got to have something like that in your stable? Because there's plenty of coaches that don't have that. In the end, what it comes down to is this. Think about what we're saying here. We got a coach where Jamie Foxx don't take the D out of D'Antoni. He still hasn't, after all of these years, he still hasn't figured out that you have to play defense at some time. Take the D out of D'Antoni. But we still want him as the head coach. But we got assistant coaches that know how to do both and can't get chances. At some point in time, give somebody else a chance. This dude has been around for 16 years as a head coach. And not one single appearance in the NBA Finals with the talent that he's had available to him. All I'm trying to say is, I'm not trying to say the man don't deserve to be a head coach. I'm not trying to say no team in the NBA shouldn't look at him and say, you know what? We need box office appeal. We need a team that can get to the playoffs and kind of make it interesting. But to just sit up there, Damian Lillard is not happy in Portland right now. Damian Lillard. And him with CJ McCollum is in the elite backcourt. And what we going to do? We going to sit up there and say, well, D'Antoni's the answer?
No, why he's not happy?
What?
Because they don't have enough. And I'm not saying D'Antoni will get them over the top. I'm saying he'll make them better. When you say, why should he get a job like that? Look, every team, like a lot of teams have a Damian Lillard caliber star. James Harden.
A lot of teams?
Well, here, look. James Harden, Steph Curry, Luka Doncic, LeBron James, KD. Like, you can go on. Even a young guy like Trae Young, you can make the same claim if D'Antoni got any of those jobs for any of those teams. As a matter of fact, when D'Antoni has a great player but doesn't buy in, can't do much with him. Carmelo, Kobe. When he has a great player who does buy in, Steve Nash, James Harden, he can do a whole lot. When he has a player who's only okay, but he buys in, Jeremy Lin looks suddenly like a star. If you give D'Antoni Damian Lillard's numbers will jump up.
Wait, I thought Lillard wants Jason Kidd. Wasn't that the conversation?
Yeah, and that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. Jason Kidd took his name out of the hat there because people in Portland was bringing up his past instead of judging him on his merits as a coach.
If Damian Lillard had D'Antoni as a coach, that team would get closer to a championship than if they had almost anyone else as a coach.
How do you know that with the West looking the way that it looks with teams playing defense? Oh, how do you know that?
I'm not saying they'd win it because they don't have enough on the roster.
Well, listen, I'm saying
D'Antoni's a dude you get if you don't have enough on the roster.
Listen, last time I checked, last time we saw Mike D'Antoni, they got bounced out in the second round. Okay, the fact of the matter is that D'Antoni doesn't ensure that you're going to get but so far. It's not like the Portland Trailblazers aren't in the playoffs. They're in the playoffs every year.
They get better or worse with D'Antoni?
Excuse me. I don't know that. What are you saying, Max? Because he's not Terry Stotts?
No, I'm saying because if you give him a dynamic ball handler who can run his system.
And I'm saying there's plenty of coaches out there who deserve the opportunity to do that rather than some dude who's been there for 16 years and never even took a team to the damn finals.
D'Antoni has a track record of doing more with less, and you're framing it as though he's doing less with more.
I'm not.
That
That's not what I'm
Rockets
saying.
team had no business competing with the Warriors.
I am not saying that. First of all, I disagree with that because if you got CP3 and James Harden, if you got CP3 and James Harden, could you make a series interesting? Yes, which is what they did. Because I predicted they was going to lose no matter what. I predicted they was going to lose no matter what. But in the end, what it comes down to is this. Is another coach, it's not about whether D'Antoni's going to be better than what Terry Stotts did. It's that can another coach do
that?
What you saying D'Antoni would do.
I haven't seen.
Can a black coach take over an opportunity where you really have a shot to win? Like, look
Is
what
there
happens.
a better coach
Steven Silas gets the job. Look what happens to the Rockets.
Is there a better coach?
With black candidates, then we keep seeing white coaches getting these great situations. This would be another example.
I wouldn't call this a great situation. I call it a good situation that he would make better.
A playoff team, and they could add
better
another
than what
piece.
Terry Stotts did. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I'm so touched.
D'Antoni, you do a lot.
I'm so touched.
D'Antoni does more with less, and you're making it sound like he does less with more.
I'm not saying he does less
Let's
with more.
go to break, guys.
I'm saying
We
he
gotta
does
get
the
to
same
commercial.
thing.
No, he does more.
Who